It was here that saw the worst of Japan's shocking atrocities committed against the Chinese people.
Yeah, and this is the subject that in school in Europe, I don't think isn't touched.
I think I've never heard. I've only heard about it when I was an adult.
Yeah. Hello everyone.
Hello everyone. This is Weronika, and
this is Waldemar.
You are so eager to get past the introductions.
Me, I get past you. I want to say hello, I'm Waldemar, and you would say hello, I'm Weronika, but you always have to say and. So, I cannot say and.
Okay.
I can't say and.
Hello everyone.
You already told it.
We can say again.
I'm Waldemar, this is Weronika.
But you sound like Italian.
It's not gonna change in the next try. I'm not gonna become Weronika. Because I would like to.
You would like to become Weronika?
Yes.
Can't blame me. Okay. So today we are watching a new series on this channel. So we'll be watching some oversimplified videos. And Waldemar has watched a lot of videos on this channel.
Yeah, all of them, I think, and a couple of times, especially this one that we are going to watch now. I think it's the most popular one. It's been on YouTube for quite some years already. And yeah, it's history is kind of something that I take a great interest in, especially the World War II period, Second World War period. You can say, I think you can see World War II and Second World War. And yeah, so I watched this video. I really enjoy it. And I know some things about this subject. But Weronika is not a history fan.
Well, it's not that I'm not a history fan, but I have the kind of memory where history knowledge just goes in my ear and out the other one. And I find that's why I think it will be a bit of a challenge for me to watch this publicly because...
yeah, we will do test after.
Yeah, well, the test, and also my ego is very overinflated and I don't like not knowing things. And with history, I'm just very much humbled because I will listen to something and then I forget it the next day, forget the name, worst of all, like the order of events or the causality of events, even though I really want to learn. But I think it will be fun to watch it together and with you guys as well.
Yeah, I think he makes these videos in a very entertaining way, and he focuses on the most important parts with also some interesting anecdotes, but mostly he focuses on the most important, how the things were running during this period.
Yeah. And
not so much on the dates, on names. I mean, they are also there, but of course they have to be. But it makes it easier for someone to just understand the context of those events and not be overwhelmed. Like it happens very often when you learn history at school, that you are overwhelmed with all those names and dates.
Yeah, and a lot of that causality is lost, and you just have a new chapter and you don't tie it into what came before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know about Second World War a lot, of course, because you learn at school, and also it's hard to grow up in this world and not know it. And I also checked facts for myself, but I think a lot of what he will say might be new to me, or maybe said in a different way that will make me understand things more, I hope.
Yeah, but also I think where we are going to school, the World War II is not taught properly. I mean, it is there, and it is, I think, correct with the facts. But I don't know if it's the same in the countries that you are learning history. You can tell us that in the comments, how does it look there. But for us, when you start history in your elementary school, you start with the ancient times, and then slowly next year you're going to the medieval times, then to more recent eras like revolutionary in France and in Europe and in USA. But you barely touch the 20th century, and then you go to the next level of school.
Yeah, and it started all over again.
After elementary school, there is a middle school.
Yeah,
and then you start again with the ancient times, but this time you focus on different things. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the high school, and you go back again from ancient times, and you're also focusing on different things now. But every time when you reach the 20th century and the World War I, World War II, then it's very often in May, June, when it's almost the end of the school year. So
you have no motivation anymore, or you have exams and you have to revise
or very often
exams.
it is already after exams, because you do your exams in, for example, April, which happens very often.
Indeed.
So the subject of World War I, World War II is not, they don't expect you to know that on your exams, because in the period when you should learn it, it's already after the exams.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I think...
Yeah, but we watch a lot of... I think most of my knowledge comes from like movies and then checking if those movies were correct. And I like reading more about the movies. I think that's where I have more knowledge than from school.
Yeah. But thankfully we have Oversimplified guy, and he did a terrific job with this. So let's just begin the video. And I hope this time you will learn and remember most of all. All right, let's begin.
This video was made possible by Skillshare. Churchill was a man with many talents. He was an artist, a butterfly enthusiast, and he had an unpublished manuscript about aliens. Clearly, he was a man with an insatiable thirst for knowledge. Maybe he could have loaded up his computer and logged onto Skillshare, an online learning community with more than 19,000 classes in design, business, technology, and more. Perhaps he was considering a side career in fashion, but didn't know where to start. On Skillshare, he would find courses in fashion design and garment construction. Or if he wanted to learn app design, improve his photography, or just how to make a really good quesadilla, he would have found courses for all of these and more on Skillshare. Skillshare gives you access to high-quality classes taught by genuine experts working in their field. I work heavily with animation, and I was genuinely blown away by the number of really useful courses available to me, like this class full of tips and tricks for creating vector art, or this one for creating character walk cycles. For an annual subscription, Skillshare is under $10 a month. And if you'd like to try it out first, then I've got a deal just for Oversimplified viewers. The first 1,000 people to use this link, which can be found in the description, will get their first 2 months of Skillshare for just 99 cents. Be sure to try it out using the link in the description and learn something new today. Now, without further ado. It's 1902. A young man by the name of Benito Mussolini moves from Italy to Switzerland to avoid military service. He gets big into socialism, working for trade unions, writing for socialist newspapers, advocating a violent overthrow of European monarchies, the whole shebang. This gets him in a bit of trouble with the Swiss police, so he gets arrested, sent back to Italy, set free, returns to Switzerland, is arrested again, goes back to Italy again, completes his military service after previously avoiding it, and then after a brief stint as an elementary school teacher, he finally returns to work as an avid socialist. His speeches and journalistic abilities made him famous among Italian socialists. He was anti-war, so when Italy colonized Libya in 1910, he rioted and got arrested. Then World War I came along, and once again he protested Italy's involvement. But then he thought, wait a minute, this war could bring about the social climate needed to overthrow European monarchies and bring about the socialist revolution everywhere. And suddenly he was pro-war. But his fellow socialists didn't like his new pro-war stance, so they kicked him out of the party. So then he said, you know what? I'm done with socialism. We need something new, not based on class divisions tearing us apart, but based on unity through nationality. We'll conquer the Mediterranean and reunite all Italian peoples, just like the days of the Roman Empire. I'll call it fascismo, and it will guide the Italian nation to greatness. That's all well and good, Mr. Mussolini, but what kind of haircut am I giving you? Let's go with... bold.
Right, I knew part of that already.
That he was the one who started the fascism.
Italy had been on the winner's side in World War I, and they hoped they were going to get a lot out of it, but in the end, they only got a little, and they felt cheated. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that the Italian people were a little unhappy. So when Mussolini came along and said that he could fix everything, his fascist movement gained a lot of support. In 1922, he went to the king and said, make me prime minister, or I'll make me prime minister. And the king said, you and what army? This army. Fair enough. Then he went about establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had its first fascist dictator. Next up, Germany. Germany had been on the loser's side, and they got absolutely wrecked by the Treaty of Versailles. They lost territory, had to demilitarize the Rhineland, had to reduce their army to just 100,000 men, couldn't have an air force, had to pay the Allies a huge amount of money that it didn't have, and a new rule was established that every Englishman withheld the right to walk into the center of Berlin, pick out any German they wanted, and spank the hell out of them. I made that last one up, but it...
Yeah, I think that this part I still know pretty well because we get to the summing up of World War One at schools.
Mm-hmm.
So the context for this is clear for me for the beginning, I think, and also because a lot of movies focus on
the
this
Treaty
period.
Versailles, stuff like that.
And also because of a lot of movies that we watch focus on this period, they are either between the wars or just the beginning.
Yeah, I think even lately we were watching this movie with Anthony Hopkins. It's called Reigns of the Day. I don't
about
know
the
if
Butler.
about the Butler. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's an interesting movie. I don't say I would recommend it to everyone, but
I think the book is better. I read the book. I think the book is better. It doesn't 100% translate to the movie.
I didn't read the book, so I cannot say for that. But it is focused on this period before the World War II, and it's about the Lord under whom Anthony Hopkins is serving as a butler, and this guy, this Lord, is like maybe not fan, but he is very fond of Germany, and he feels
it takes place in England.
It takes place. Of course, it takes place in England, and this Lord is not happy about the Treaty of Versailles, and he thinks that it is crippling Germany, and it's not fair to finish the war on this kind of terms, which
he kind of tries to be fair or something. I think he's a bit naive maybe, and then it goes in that certain direction.
In this movie, yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah. So, but I think historically we are proven that the Treaty of Versailles was too harsh, and I hope we learned our lessons from this time. And I think we did. All right, let's continue.
It helps you understand how all of this felt to Germans. On top of that, a bad economy and weak governments meant that when a small angry man with a silly mustache came along and said that he could fix everything, the German people loved it. Hitler had been a soldier during World War I, and he was crazy patriotic, and nobody was madder than him about Germany's humiliation. He helped start a new political party, and in 1923 attempted a march on Munich with his boys. And then he got arrested. But his popularity grew and grew, and in 1933, the president made him chancellor. He believed he was Germany's great destined savior, and he went full megalomaniac, establishing a dictatorship with himself at its center. Europe had fascist dictator number 2. Hitler and Mussolini had a lot of the same ideas, but more importantly, they had the same enemies, and they started to get along. Anyone else want to be friends? Franco? No? You good? I do. Who's that? It's Japan, and they've taken over northern China. Let's roll.
By the way, Franco was, I think, he's not as long figure in history, and especially in this period, because there were a lot more important things happened in the scale of war, World War II. But I think it's pretty... he was not an admirable person, but I want to say that it's amazing how he was able to keep Spain out of this global conflict, being the big country in the center of Europe. And this conflict was happening not only in Europe, but in almost all of the continents. And yet he was able to close himself on this conflict without really choosing a side. He was kind of stepping from one hand to the other. And thanks to that, Spain didn't suffer that much because of the World War II. They suffered because of the civil war they had. But the World War II was not such a big issue for them, which in Europe at that time was unheard of, almost.
Is Franco the guy that made everyone have the same name?
I don't know.
There was a period, I don't know, maybe you guys know what I'm talking about, but there was that period in Spain when everyone had the same name?
I'm not sure. I think I don't heard about it. But if something like that happened, I would say that it's pretty good bet that it was because of Franco.
Okay.
Because he was the sole ruler of Spain until, I don't know, 65 or 75? I think 75. Not sure about that, but I think he was the ruler until 70s. So he was ruling this country for about 40 years. Yeah, so
maybe that one. Okay.
After him, there were only kings ruling Spain. So there wouldn't be anyone else who would be able to do that. So I think it is him, if it really happened.
Rewind a bit. Japan had isolated itself from the rest of the world for over 200 years until the Americans showed up and said, you're going to trade with us and you're going to like it. Then the Western powers imposed a bunch of unequal treaties, meaning Japan's economy was bust. They also had no natural resources, so they decided to go get some. They went to war with China to gain a sphere of influence over Korea, and they took a bunch of China's stuff. But then the West said, hey, cut that out. And since Japan couldn't take on the West, they said, okay, I guess we'll just go home. Wait a minute, what are you doing? Taking advantage of a weakened China and setting up spheres of influence. But I was the one who weakened them. We know. And you guys didn't let me have anything. We know. That seems unfair. We don't think so. Okay, see ya. So Japan thought, screw this, and went to war with Russia, and stunned everyone by actually winning. Then they fully annexed Korea, but they didn't stop there. In World War I, they took Germany's colonies and islands in Asia, and then in an incident that was maybe staged by the Japanese army...
It's like, I think this part that are the hardest for me. Like, I am very, very vaguely aware that this happened, but if I see my history book at school, this is a line. Like, there's a whole chapter about this year, for example, of the war, and the fact that Japan attacked Russia is one line, and it's not even involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's not going to be a question on it on the exam. Maybe if there was like, oh, what happened in September or something, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
But you if it's not about your country, you're not going to learn about that.
Yeah, but the fact is also that the World War II was such a massive event that to cover everything that was happening in all of the continents, in all of the fronts, it's barely possible. And especially in school when you have like 2 hours of history a week, and you have the whole year when you discuss different periods, different themes. So yeah, that's why these videos are so good, because it's like 30 minutes, 40 minutes video.
Yeah, and we already had a lot.
And the knowledge is so condensated that, and the graphics also help you to
remember it, And the maps are so helpful for me. Like, I know the map, but it's not always so easy to remember everything and imagine everything. And when they show you, and they show like how they take over the country and everything.
You know where it happened. You can.
How much of that the country that was.
You have like a picture in your mind with this memory. Also, like it's together, suit together.
A bomb blew up a Japanese train in Manchuria, giving them an excuse to launch an invasion and take over. So here's the situation. Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Japan all believe they're racially superior, all feel hostility towards the Allies, and all want to militarize and take over more stuff. And so they did. Let's start with Germany. Hitler hated the Treaty of Versailles, and now he was ready to begin undoing it. In complete violation of the treaty, the first Luftwaffe squadrons were set up, conscription was introduced, and he pimped up his army. The Allies did nothing. Then Hitler sent his army back into the demilitarized Rhineland, giving orders to immediately retreat if the Allies showed up. The Allies did nothing. With his military re-strengthened, he could now move on to step 2. He wanted to rapidly increase the Aryan population, and to do so, he needed Lebensraum, or in other words, he would have to take over the world. But for now, a good portion of Europe would do, and he began eyeing up his neighbors. The Allies finally started to get worried, so they implemented a fairly useless diplomatic strategy called appeasement, and it went a little something like this. Hitler would say, I want that thing, and the Allies would say, you can't have that thing. Okay, you can have that thing, but no more. I want that thing. And repeat. In 1938, Hitler's army...
Yeah, a good movie about this period, if I can also make another recommendation, is Darkest Hour with Gary Oldman, who you won't recognize in this movie, but he plays the main part of Winston Churchill. We watched this movie together, you remember?
I remember.
Yeah, it's
hard not to remember.
This movie I can really recommend to most of you, especially if you enjoy history. Even a little, then it's just a very good movie and about very important time. Yeah,
like factual but entertaining. I think very good acting, not over the top anything. So very nice.
It's not too dragged. It's not long.
No.
It's about 2 hours. It's packed nicely. I recommend it wholeheartedly.
Army marched into Austria and just took it with no resistance. Boom! This is Germany now. Next, he demanded to be given the...
I think this was the revenge of Hitler for dropping him out of the art school. Because he was trying to... I
have one that was the biggest meme on the internet, I think.
He was trying to get into the art school in Vienna. So that was his like, okay, so you want to take me in the school? Then I will take the school.
Then I will take your school,
Datenland, an area of Czechoslovakia with many ethnic Germans. The Allies held a meeting with Hitler in Munich and said, look, we're going to give you what... Hang on. This meeting is about my territory. Shouldn't I come to the meeting too? Anyway, we're gonna give you what you want. Really? Yeah. Just like that? Yep. What's the catch? Just sign this piece of paper promising you won't invade the rest of Czechoslovakia. Okay. Then Chamberlain returned home victorious, waving his signed piece of paper in the air, declaring crisis to be averted and the continuation of world peace. And we built a statue of Chamberlain in his honor, and every day on the 30th of September we celebrate Chamberlain Day. Hitler's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia. What? He's invading the rest of Czechoslovakia.
But he signed the paper.
You lied to me. What do you expect? I'm Hitler. Not to be outdone, Mussolini also wanted to get in on the action. He thought to himself, isn't there a not yet colonized nation somewhere which is so underdeveloped that the people would be defending themselves against our tanks with literal bows and arrows and wooden spears? Oh, there is? Fantastic. And so he took it. Italy also wanted to control the entrance to the Adriatic Sea, so they occupied Albania. Then, in another incident which was maybe staged by the Japanese, gunfire was exchanged by Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge, and the Japanese launched yet another invasion against China. They swept through Beijing and Shanghai, and then advanced through the Yangtze Valley to China's then capital, Nanking. It was here that saw the worst of Japan's shocking atrocities committed against the Chinese people. Back in Europe, Germany and Italy made...
Yeah, and this is the subject that in school in Europe, I don't think isn't touched.
I think I've never heard. I only heard about it when I was an adult.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, from a podcast or something. But and I think I've heard when you would hear like the term medical experiments, maybe, and they would mention the Germans, and they would be like, "Oh, but the Japanese were worse." But that was just like a period, and they never touched on it again.
They were worse.
But I think that's what they said. I remember something like that from school. Yeah. Maybe just to take it away from Europe, they were like, oh, but these people who are not from Europe were even worse, so we are not that bad.
It's hard to say this.
I don't think you can put. Yeah, of course not. Of course not.
But the subject of the Pacific theater of World War II is almost untouched in the history in school in Europe. You only think that is being said is about the atomic bombs, of course, because you just have to say that. It's not possible to not mention that. And you know that there was the Pearl Harbor attack, but everything between these events, between Pearl Harbor and the dropping of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, is very vague.
Yeah, that's how it is in my head too. Just this.
Yeah. They attacked, they were having a war, and the Americans win by dropping the bombs. Yeah.
Made their relationship status official by signing the Pact of Steel. Then, Hitler turned his eyes towards Poland and the hated Polish corridor, splitting Germany in two. At this point, the Allies really had to put their foot down, and they warned him that an invasion of Poland would mean war. Hitler had planned to continue his advance eastward, but he didn't want to end up fighting a war on two fronts. So for now, he made an alliance with Stalin, saying, how about we both invade Poland and split it between the two of us, and I definitely won't not refrain from not betraying you sometime in the future. Sounds good. This new alliance stunned the West. On the 1st of September 1939, German troops entered Poland, and Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Poles fought hard, but they were no match for the two giants crashing down on them from either side. Then came a period known as the Phony War, where everyone just sort of sat around not doing much. The French had launched a small invasion into the Saarland, but they maintained mostly defensive positions, and after a while decided to turn around.
You know that there is this stereotype that the French are cowards, that they always hide behind the white flag. It's mostly because of that. I mean, France is the country with, I think, the most wins in wars, in battles, in history. I mean, just the Napoleonic times. But not only. So, World War II, the French also fought very bravely, and they suffered, I think, one of the biggest casualties from all of the countries. But just this little period of time, and you have a reputation of a coward for decades after.
I find it was because they gave up quickly, not because of this period.
I mean, they gave up because they were defeated. We'll see that later. Okay. But the Phony War is the problem that instead of attacking the Germans instantly after the invasion of Poland, they kind of like he says here. They were kind of like...
maybe he won't do anything else. Yeah, something like that.
And because of that, they gave time to the Germans to regroup. Okay. And to later launch an invasion on France. Okay.
around and call it a day. Speaking of France, the French were still super proud of their victory in World War I, and they hadn't really moved on from it. They still used horses, they dispatched messages by motorbike instead of using radio, orders from the commander-in-chief were usually pretty vague, and the troops were rarely inspected. They built a line of defenses along their German border, but didn't bother extending it all the way to the Channel, and they wouldn't launch artillery strikes against Germany out of fear of being retaliated against. In a war, they didn't want to attack the enemy. And at first the UK wasn't much better. Chamberlain still naively hoped that the war could be ended diplomatically. Instead of bombing raids, the RAF dropped propaganda leaflets over German cities, which one air marshal said likely did nothing but provide the continent with toilet paper for the duration of the war. They also only sent 200,000 men to France, while the French had mobilized millions. Both Britain and France wanted to avoid a repeat of the First World War, and so they wanted to keep the war as far from home as possible. So they turned their eyes north, towards Norway. Neutral Sweden was exporting iron ore to Germany through neutral Norway, so the Allies asked them if they could please stop exporting iron ore to Germany, but this request was refused. Then, the Soviet Union attacked Finland, so the Allies said, how about we land troops in Norway and move them across Sweden to go help out your good pal Finland, and along the way maybe take control of all your airfields. But Norway and Sweden still said no. So the UK mined the waters around Norway to force any transport ships into international waters, and they also attacked a German tanker they found in the area. Hitler realized what the Allies were up to, and he quickly moved to secure his supply of iron ore. He launched an invasion through Denmark into Norway. The Allies rushed to land troops at key ports along the coast, but Germany had taken control of Norway's airfield, and their air superiority decided the fight. The Allies had to retreat. After this slightly embarrassing failure, Chamberlain resigned and was replaced with Winston Churchill, who had a slightly different approach to dealing with the Germans. Hitler's overall strategy was similar to Germany's First World War strategy. Attack France, defeat France, knocking out the UK in the process, then turn on the Soviet Union and win the war. During the Phony War, the Allies had given Hitler time to prepare his forces. Now, he was ready to attack. The Allies had wanted to place troops in Belgium, but Belgium had refused, and in a move that surprised pretty much no one, Hitler launched an invasion to get around France's defenses. The Allies charged into Belgium at full speed to meet the German invasion head-on, and it looked like a repeat of the First World War was coming. But this time, Hitler had a trick up his sleeve. Blitzkrieg. As the Germans advanced, they sent thousands of refugees westward.
Blitz what?
Blitzkrieg. It's in German. It's called the Lightning War.
What does it... The lightning war?
Yeah, Blitz is lightning.
Ah, okay, like quick war.
Yeah, but like you know.
Yeah, but like in chess, Blitz.
Yeah, it's also
okay.
from German. And the Krieg means war in German.
Ah, okay.
So it was about a fast way of dealing
Resolving the conflict.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the interesting fact about Blitzkrieg is it was possible not only because of the good strategy, but also because of methamphetamine. You heard about this?
No, I don't think so.
You heard about this?
I know but they are feeding soldiers drugs everywhere, right? Not just in Germany. Most soldiers, I think, are given drugs in the US.
I'm not sure that soldiers are on drugs.
Wasn't it in? I forgot the book that you liked, The King of Fats. I think then he mentions about taking drugs in the army as well.
No.
With your coffee.
No.
I think so.
No, I was German.
There must have been another book I left.
It was a German thing that during the World War II they were taking methamphetamine. It was sold in Germany as a legal prescription drug.
Are you sure they were doing it to US as well? Let us know if you do.
I don't think that US troops or any other troops from the Allies were taking drugs to enhance their combat abilities.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
And methamphetamine was perfect for this kind of thing because it allowed you to stay awake for hours and hours, to be full of of energy and even aggression. So yeah, it was tested. I heard that it was tested first in the invasion of Poland, and then during Blitzkrieg.
So they don't have to sleep; they can just no fear, nothing, just focus. Yeah.
Slowing down the Allies. Then, to the south, the French had left the Ardennes, an area full of hills and forests, pretty under-defended because they thought it was naturally impenetrable. Well, the Germans were about to penetrate it with everything they had. They smashed 50 Wehrmacht divisions through and encircled the Allied armies at lightning speed. The best of the Allied forces were now trapped. The Germans squeezed in from all sides, taking out France's best armies and nearly wiping out the British too, but they managed to make a desperate last-minute escape at Dunkirk, with British civilian ships even making the perilous journey to bring their young men home. With most of the French forces depleted, the Germans breezed...
Wait, is that what the movie is about, or is the movie about the First War? Dunkirk.
No.
It's this one, right?
Yeah, Dunkirk.
I was wondering if this was my ego like poking out the head. Like, are you going to say something very stupid? But no, I was gonna say, and they got a pretty movie out of it.
Yeah, I'm not a very big fan of this movie. I think Nolan made better movies than Dunkirk.
I am, because it was really pretty.
But
Like, yes.
it was a good movie. But this event as a whole is such an amazing example of what people can do to each other.
Yeah.
Like,
Amazing, yeah.
they were able to bring so many soldiers back home. I mean, I don't remember how many, but hundreds of thousands of people.
And the sacrifices everyone made,
to move them through the ocean.
with the small boats and everyone,
Yeah, because there was no possibility for UK to bring so many military ships to have place for all these people in France, or these soldiers in France. So they have to use the civilian infrastructure, civilian boats.
It's like you often say, one person can't make a difference, and it's just a slogan that they can, but really they did, because every single person they organized themselves.
Every person saved a couple of lives, even if one life, but this one event allowed Britain to regroup and continue the war. And without that, if they would lost so many people at the beginning of the war, I think the world would look different.
I didn't know about this. That's also why I like this movie, because I didn't know all these details before we watched it. So I am remembering some things, actually. Something is staying. Okay.
Through taking Paris, and France fell. What the Germans couldn't do in World War I, Hitler had done just like that. Hitler hoped that with the fall of France, the UK would also lose hope and sue for peace. But quite annoyingly, it didn't, and he needed to secure the Western Front, so he tried to force them into submission with mind games. The UK were now all alone, and Hitler wanted to emphasize that. First of all, just before France fell, Italy finally declared war on the Allies, making the UK's situation...
Yeah, I want to just say that I know that Churchill is kind of a controversial figure in many ways, but for just this fact alone, that the Great Britain, in this period where everyone was against them and they have no allies, all Europe was beaten by the Nazi Germany. And it was only Great Britain. Then you need to remember that USA still hasn't joined the war.
Why is he controversial?
I mean, because he did some
the cruelty in his decisions, or?
I mean, not really cruelty, but he did some unpopular decisions. And also the shape of Europe after World War II in the conferences in Tehran and Yalta.
Yeah, at least that one.
So he was kind of responsible for the Cold War era. I mean, not just him, but he was a big part of it. Okay. And he did also some controversial things, like, for example, French have a big problem with Churchill, because after the French fall in the Second World War, then Churchill, I don't know if this is in this video, I'm not sure if I've seen this here or somewhere else.
There was a part 2 somewhere there.
But Churchill decided to sink the French fleet because he didn't want it to come into Germany.
Okay, I remember something like that.
So he sent British Navy to sink those boats. And the boats were...
There were people on them still?
Yes, French soldiers.
Isn't there a rule that you can't sink?
Yeah, but that's why he's controversial.
Okay.
But thanks to that...
But you can't even sink your enemies, and you'd sink your allies?
I mean, you can sink your enemies.
Yeah, you're supposed to help them, right? This is the rule that I always ask you about. That doesn't make sense to me, that you're supposed to fish them out.
I don't... I mean, yeah, maybe he...
Well, not all of them,
He fished them out, but you have to fish them out only after you sink them.
Yeah, some people would die in the process of saving them.
Yeah, but when they are in water, you need to save them. And as long as they are on the ship, you can shoot at them.
If you're still falling into the water and you're in the process...
Then you can... This is the last time.
Where is the moment where you...
So you touch the water.
Okay, touch the water.
Touch the water, and then it's the Geneva Convention. You can shoot them. You need to take them out.
What if the water pours into the ship? How much water needs to be in the ship?
That's an interesting question.
Like... At which point would Leo DiCaprio have to be saved when he's like handcuffed? Okay, history, yes.
Even worse. Next, instead of just occupying all of France, Hitler occupied the coastal areas for defense, but allowed France to continue its existence as a German puppet state. This way, it looked like the UK's old ally had decided to switch sides. Hitler also hoped that the UK wouldn't attack any of her old allies' navy bases or colonies in Africa, giving Hitler an extra line of defense to the south. But the UK made sure to respond to this by sailing down to France's navy base in Algeria and wrecking a bunch of ships. So have at it.
Yeah.
Hitler then began laying...
This is the event that I was talking about.
Yeah, but you explained it more, thank you. So now it's a bit clearer because here it's just a line.
down plans for an invasion of Great Britain. Before German troops could land on British soil, he would first need air and naval superiority across the Channel. Waves of German bombers came, while the completely outnumbered RAF worked bravely around the clock in an attempt to quell the German attacks. At first, the Luftwaffe targeted British ports and coastal facilities. Then it attacked RAF bases, crippling the RAF's ability to defend the nation. And it looked like Hitler's Great British invasion was coming. But then, Churchill ordered a small, pretty insignificant bombing raid over Berlin. It didn't do much damage, but Hitler was furious, and he immediately ordered the Luftwaffe to refocus its attacks on civilian targets in London. Children were sent off to the countryside, away from their parents to avoid danger, and frequent trips to air raid shelters became a daily...
You remember that in the Chronicles of Narnia, the first book starts with that?
Yeah.
That they are being sent to the village.
I remember.
To the countryside because I'm not sure if they were living in London.
I think
it was London.
The movie starts in London, yeah.
Yeah, they were sent because of that reason exactly.
The occurrence, but British morale held firm. Smiling, knitting, lounging casually, these people have balls of steel. This refocusing on London also gave the RAF breathing space to reorganize, so Hitler kind of shot himself in the foot there. Just the foot for now. Finally, the Luftwaffe sent one massive all-out attack on London, and the RAF successfully repelled it, destroying many of the German aircraft and placing air superiority firmly in British hands. Hitler's invasion had to be postponed, but the bombing of British cities continued for some time.
Do you think I just finished, but do you think the war would have ended differently if there was land access to England? To the UK?
To the land access? Yeah, of course, but it's a difficult question because the UK wouldn't be UK if it had land access to...
Yes, that would have been different to start with.
Because there was this shift in power during centuries in Europe that the sea were ruled by UK. Mm-hmm. They had the most powerful fleet. I think during the World War II also, the fleet of UK was the most powerful in the world. Mm-hmm. And France was the powerhouse on the continent.
Okay.
And because of that, there was always the tension because France and UK, but they were stronger in that area, and they couldn't really defeat each other. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so that's a great advantage for Great Britain to be Ireland, because the German infantry and especially the Panzer divisions in the World War II were superior to everyone else in Europe, but because UK wasn't relying so much on its infantry, but instead of on their Navy and the Air Force lately. Yeah, but Air Force was later. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was the reason that they were able to hold on so long.
Thank you for explaining it.
No problem.
I really liked it. It's really, really clear to me. Even when he moves fast, he really makes sure that the context is tied there all the time. So even if you move something fast and you can't follow, he kind of comes back to it with later happens. I think it's really clear, and I really like the maps again. I think that it would be really good if you will be able to do it at schools and show kids as well. I don't know. It's just like even when you think about how big the territory is, it makes when he shows that Germany is taking over France, and it's such a big territory, and it's
But it's amazing how in this time, in this period, when you're going to school, you have so easily accessible tools and materials that you can use to enhance your knowledge.
Oh, yeah, true. Maybe they are already showing it to kids.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
I'm sure they are.
It depends on the
if they only speak English, then I think that is very popular to show kids videos like that.
Well, maybe not kids.
Kids.
Or like older kids.
But even kids, there is nothing there's nothing drastic.
Yeah, actually, the humor is more adult, but
if you already touch the subject of World War II, then there is nothing in this video that those kids
it's like
haven't heard of.
Yeah, you learn about Holocaust, but you can't handle a joke about Hitler.
Yeah, so this was Oversimplified Part 1. We will watch Oversimplified Part 2 soon.
Yep.
And it will be uploaded, I think, the next day.
All right.
So, thank you very much for watching. Leave us some comments about this video. and give a thumbs up, subscribe please, and check out more of our videos.
Yes, please. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Take care.